Sasigar and welcome to Sanjha TV. I'm your host Amin Dillon and आज मेरे साथ है गया Patrick Brown, Brampton Mayor. Patrick, good to have you on Sanjha TV. How are you doing?
Very good. Nice to talk to you.
And we have a really great interview lined up because you are seeking re-election as Brampton Mayor. So there's lots to talk about. Let's get right into it. I know our viewers have been following you because you've been in the headlines for a lot of different things. But the recent news headline is you've been cleared by Brampton's Integrity Commissioner. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's a relief. People made some false allegations. There's this extreme right-wing blog called Rebel that made allegations that were clearly false, and to have the Integrity Commissioner say all that nonsense was incorrect is nice, and it just goes to show that in the end the truth tends to come out.
And what great timing, because like I said, we're in full campaign mode for re-election. That was one issue. The other issue that a lot of folks have been hearing about is within City Council. So as we know, there's been a division. Why do you think it is that some City Councillors are opposed to you running again?
So I start off by saying I wouldn't say full campaign mode. I'm still at work like I am today at City Hall, where you visited me, focused on making sure I take care of the best interest of the city. In terms of the divisions we've had on council, we went through a tough period where there was divisions in the council on a number of issues. But when I look at the big picture, we've been 4 years as this council. For the first 3.5, it went really well. We adopted the budgets all unanimously. Only big city in the country to freeze property taxes. We passed a transit master plan unanimously. Our healthcare emergency was unanimous. We drove the media narrative to finally get enough noise to get a new hospital. We got a med school coming to the city. First big city to have free transit for seniors. So there's a lot we agreed on. And obviously when members weren't coming to council, I had to use strong language to get them to come back to the table. As you know, there's a number of councillors who are not running again, and in some cases very checked out. But I did make a public challenge and said, if you don't come back to council, I'd be putting forward a motion that you lose your pay if you miss more than 5 meetings in a row. And I have to say, people responded. Surprise, surprise. Sometimes the strong language gets a response, and the last 3 meetings we've had almost full attendance, and so it looks like that's back on track now.
But you do realize a lot of people are worried that City Council is not actually working together, and they're worried that if, let's say, everybody who's seeking re-election gets put back into their positions, can they feel confident that anytime there's a motion that you're trying to get through or they're going to get through, that you're working together in the best interest of Brampton?
Well, and that's ultimately for residents to decide. I would say some of the councillors who had been critical or boycotting council meetings, they're not running again. And so I think we're going to have a lot of new councillors, which is a good thing to have renewal around the table. And what I'm hearing from those running again and from those contesting for the first time, what they're saying to me is, we want to work with you, we want to help you implement your agenda, and so I'm really optimistic that we're going to have a great group around the table that can really move Brampton forward.
And let's talk about taking Brampton forward. So 4 years, let's do a little recap. One of the things I've been hearing about has always been the hospital, has been our healthcare issues. So 4 years, I know you were saying you and the City Council agreed that a lot needs to be done. Now, just to remind everybody, this is not just a decision based on City Council. You need support from various levels of government, so that can be quite the challenge. In the past 4 years, what would you rate your ability to improve healthcare systems? And if you get re-elected, what would you like to see happen?
So I think this council hit a home run, to be blunt. In 2006, when they decommissioned the old Osler Hospital, we were told as a city that we'd get a new hospital. Year after year, promise, crickets, nothing. Promise, crickets, nothing. Nothing happened. And it moves on 16 years. And finally, in last year's budget, after, I was pretty aggressive in the media with my healthcare emergency, driving a real discussion at Queen's Park. We finally got it put into the provincial budget, $1 billion for the new hospital on that empty field in front of the old decommissioned hospital, Peel Memorial. $1 billion is the largest healthcare investment in the city's history. we're going to see up to 350 beds. Starts with 250, goes up to 350. Full service emerge, 24/7 hospital. So this is a home run. Some of the work on the hospital's already started. They put the tender out on the Infrastructure Ontario website, and it's nice to see some of that initial work on the soil starting. And then on top of that, we landed a medical school, first new medical school in 100 years, and a regional cancer center to be associated with Brampton Civic. So those are 3 healthcare home runs. I think if you had said 4 years ago you're going to get a new hospital, a med school, and a cancer center, they would have said you're dreaming. So I'm really happy with the progress we've made. It's probably the most significant progress on the healthcare front that we've ever seen in Brampton's history.
And so if you were to be reelected, how would you step up from that?
Well, eventually we're going to need a 3rd hospital too, and so I'm going to start pushing for a planning grant for the 3rd hospital.
Okay.
But certainly we need to get shovels in the ground for the 2nd hospital before we push for the 3rd.
Because Patrick, like I've covered Brampton for 10 years now, and the hospital is always the biggest issue in every election, regardless of what level. So that's why I know a lot of residents are loving, hearing this news, and I think they're very optimistic. But I think there's also that, sort of cynicism that they're like, let's say you don't get reelected. Let's say, the other governments decide they're going to change what they want to support. Is there a chance that these promises may not happen?
It can't go back now because it's already on the Infrastructure Ontario website for tenders. It's already in the budget document. And they're issuing contracts now. So you're going to see a massive construction project over the next 5 years on the site of the new hospital. And so there's no turning back from that when the contracts are issued, the work starts, and it's going to be an exciting time for healthcare in our city.
Absolutely, and I think it's going to be great to attract talent to the city as well. So let's talk about that. I always say Brampton is a city full of amazing talent, right? Everything from startups to small businesses to our creative arts folks. So let's talk about what you are most proud of in the past 4 years in terms of making Brampton an economic hub. And if you get reelected, what are some things you would like to see that you can improve on?
So, end of the day, we need to make a pitch to the investment community that Brampton is a great place to invest. And for that, you need to have no red tape, competitive tax rates, and that's what I've been working on. I've been taking a chainsaw to the red tape that exists in the city. I have been the only mayor that's frozen taxes for big cities in Canada. I'm trying to create an investment climate that is welcoming in our city. And we've had some major wins. And one of my favorite examples of the type of economic development wins we've had has been the success with MDA. So MDA is an aerospace company, and we partnered city, provincial government, federal government for their new headquarters. They're going to have 800 rocket science jobs. Servicing the International Space Station, robotics. These are some of the highest paid jobs in the country. And instead of saying hello Houston on the movies, they're going to have to adjust it and say hello Brampton. That is a major economic development win for the city, but it's one of many. You look at the new Boston Scientific Canadian headquarters, which is medical technology devices. You look at the job growth we've seen at Canon. The list goes on and on. Stellantis, we got that major investment for the electrification of the auto facility, so we're going to be doing electric cars, maintaining the long-term prosperity of that factory. And so, it's a really exciting time to be in Brampton, where we're seeing major economic development wins.
I'm going to add on to this because I've been interviewing a number of local artists, all calling Brampton home, and they are killing it right now. They are making it on the international stages. You've got producers, rappers, actresses too, all working in LA, Hollywood, mainstream musicians. Yeah, so that's why I always say it's so nice that Brampton is a city full of talent, but I really do feel like we have a lot of these organizations and
but almost underrated. What I say is that there's more talent, tenacity, and resilience in Brampton than anywhere else in the world. And an example that I'll give that we haven't touched upon is in the world of sports. The Blue Jays' latest addition, a Brampton boy. You look at the national soccer team, the women's team. that won Olympic, two soccer players from Brampton. The men's national team that's going to the World Cup, half the team is from Brampton. I actually had the New York Times call my office and they asked the question, what's in the water in Brampton to produce so many international athletes? And my answer was, I don't know.
I was going to say, what is it? I would love to know. What is the secret, you think?
We got some great recreational amenities.
Yeah.
On that note, I should mention I'm working with Atiba Hutchinson, the captain of the Canadians team, to expand our soccer amenities. We're expanding field hockey, cricket.
I was going to mention cricket is huge here in Brampton,
And you know what? For years we didn't invest, and during my time as mayor, we've made massive investments in cricket. And my belief is we can't sit in the 1970s. Recreation changes. The population is more diverse than ever before, and the recreational interests are different than they might have been 40 years ago. And so I've had to push sometimes. You know, changing the status quo sometimes causes friction, but I'll continue to push to make sure that I've got recreational amenities in the city that serves all our residents.
Absolutely, and everyone, I feel like Brampton, everyone knows Brampton because it is one of the fastest growing cities, and a lot of newcomers call Brampton home, but then you've got the next generation that are born and raised here that are choosing to remain in Brampton, which I always say is like a key factor in figuring out how successful a city council is if people are choosing to make their home there and to remain there. So
100%.
I feel like it really, because of the population growth, I really do think Brampton just keeps expanding their borders because people actually do not want to leave. So why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a great sign that people enjoy the quality of life in Brampton.
Yeah.
But there's always more to do. And when we talk about young people, I still am committed to trying to get our own university. We're the only big city in the country that doesn't have a university. I really want people to grow up and stay in Brampton. I think having additional educational opportunities is a key part of that.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we've seen that have been really, really great about Brampton. Maybe what is the number one thing, if you were to be reelected, that you really want to focus on? I know it may be difficult, but if there's one area in particular that you just personally are like, I wish I had more time to work on this, so I hope I got reelected so I can continue to work on it, what would it be?
One of them is public safety. We're not a small town anymore.
No.
And we're a big city, and with big cities comes public safety challenges. And so right now I've got approval to build a new police station in the northwest of the city. We're going to need a new police station in the northeast of the city as well. We've added 180 police officers over the last 4 years, and it's not enough. We've got problems with auto thefts, gun and gang activity. I'm working with Chief Nish to really make sure we have modern technology to help the police do their jobs. We're adding CCTV cameras. We've added automated speed devices. And so that's something that I want to pay a lot more time on, trying to make sure that the city has the tools to keep every neighborhood safe.
Do you think that is the cause of this increased crime? Is there's not enough resources?
You know, on a per capita level in Peel Region, we're below the provincial averages. We do need more police officers to have faster response times. We have more calls to the police than we have police officers able to respond, which means that you've got some crimes where we don't see a response.
What about outreach? Because I know in Brampton, I was mentioning this before, many new immigrants call Brampton home, and a vast majority of them are South Asian. So I was wondering, in terms of communication about, you know, adjusting to life here, maybe what their rights are, maybe where they can turn to for help. You know, we've heard issues of domestic violence. We've had, you know, a crime committed within families, like you were saying, car theft. And there's been a number of other issues. And I always try to sit down and think, you know, what is perhaps the cause of it? Is it maybe more community programs are needed to maybe take at-risk youth and give them an opportunity to learn a skill so they're able to adjust to life here? Or is it just better support for immigrants? What are you hearing from in terms of feedback from the community? What do they need?
So a lot of settlement services is run by the federal government, but you know, we do support any of those efforts. Just this past week I was at the annual Newcomers Affair that the city partners with the Brampton Multicultural Association on, and I know that there is challenges when coming to a new country, and so we're always looking at ways to be helpful. I would say that I think Brampton is one of the best examples in the country about how everyone sort of works together. The way I describe it is, if one part of our family is attacked, we're all attacked. And sometimes you hear stories of hate and intolerance, and one thing that makes me proud of Brampton is I think we probably have the lowest tolerance of any part of the country when it comes to hate and intolerance. And if the Sikh community is attacked, or the Hindu community is attacked, or if there's racism or Islamophobia, what you really see is the community rally together and say, we have no time for that. And it must be condemned. Appeal police are also doing a great job in terms of trying to integrate at the grassroots level and also show that they've got no patience for intimidation or hate of any kind. It's a learning process, but I think here in Peel Region, we're a model for other communities.
We are, and I also appreciate that you've made yourself very available to the various communities, because I constantly see updates. Like in one day, I can't even keep track of how many events you go to that celebrate our multicultural community. I've seen you wearing traditional outfits in those communities, taking part in, even their customs, which I think is really nice. But most importantly, like every single group, regardless if it's small or really like one of the biggest ones here, you're always making sure you're available. Like even weekends, I'm like, I know you've got a family, you make yourself available. So I really do think that is something that, as a mayor of a really diverse community and city, that's something that people should be looking at. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel like, in terms of being able to represent and reach out as much, do you feel like there's more that needs to be done?
I love that part of my job. I love the fact, I get to meet every community, every culture, every faith. I think it's a fascinating aspect of our city, and so, I relish the opportunity to be able to truly understand our mosaic.
And I think you do. I was joking before the interview. I was like, I can't wait till one day I can do this interview in many different languages, because I know you can do it. Let's get back to the Conservative leadership. Now, that was a big topic in the news. We know you ran. You were disqualified from running. Now, the race is going to continue on. I wanted to know, and I'm sure Brampton folks want to know as well, whoever wins as the next Conservative leader, especially if you win the re-election, you're going to have to work with them, right? You're going to have to work with members of the Conservative Party. Is there any issues of concern there?
So I'd say we've got a very good working relationship with the provincial government right now, which is Conservative. I expressed my concerns rather publicly that I didn't want to see the federal Conservative Party go to the extreme right. There are some in the party that want to replicate sort of the Donald Trump approach, and I don't support that. The reason I put my name forward was that I said the party needs to change, and they've been on the wrong side of history on a number of issues, from equal rights in marriage to Islamophobia to the barbaric tip line announcement, and my brand of conservatism was very much Bill Davis's, which was collaborative, modern, inclusive, and I put my name forward to try to shift the party. The party wasn't ready for that change. I think many thought what I was proposing was too radical, which is, I think, the reason that I wasn't permitted to run, because it would have been a very significant change in the party's direction. Now my approach is going to be the approach that I've taken the last 4 years before that leadership, which is I'll work with any party, whether it's green, orange, red, or blue. Whoever can serve Brampton, I'll work with. But my message for those in the Conservative Party would be, if they want to be successful, if they want to serve in government one day, then I don't believe the recipe for success is following the extremes in the United States. I believe the recipe for success is showing that you will stand for every Canadian.
So if there was a candidate in particular that you would throw your support behind, who would it be?
So right now, I'm going to take a back seat from partisan politics, work with all the political parties, and let the Conservatives sort out their own business. Obviously, they want to take a different approach than the one that I've recommended, and ultimately, they're responsible for their own decisions. But here in Brampton, we'll work with every party. And we certainly won't be doing federal election endorsements. In municipal politics, we try to be nonpartisan.
But if there were folks that wanted to support you in the leadership race and are disappointed that you're no longer running, if they could say, Patrick, let us know who you think we should throw support behind, you're going to say, no, we're going to stay out of it?
Yeah, I've said right now I'm focused on municipal politics. I shared my commentary previously in terms of what I thought of the different candidates, and so that's all on the public record. But right now my focus is Brampton, Brampton, Brampton.
Okay, and so then let's talk about the provincial government. Obviously, Doug Ford won his re-election as well. Conversations with him in terms of getting that support for Brampton, how's that been going?
Yeah, having some really good conversations with the Premier. Obviously, Prabmeet Sakaria, who's our local minister, is a close friend of mine, and he's the Treasury Board President, which means he writes the checks. So we've got a great relationship with Prabmeet, and I'm optimistic that we're going to continue to see success with that relationship at Queen's Park.
Okay, so it sounds like all good times ahead. Just need to get you to win the next election, right? So everyone, October 24th is when everyone's going to be going to the polls and voting. Obviously, it's going to be a pretty competitive race. There's a number of city council positions that are up for grabs as well. Obviously, there's folks that are putting their name in for mayor. Before we end this show, you know, I want to make sure some folks may be undecided, maybe they're a little confused with the issues. So if you could really just pitch them, you know, in terms of why they should be throwing your support behind you. In 2018, Brampton really showed up and threw their support behind you. So why are you hoping that they continue to throw their support?
So, you know, honestly, I'm not making a pitch to voters. You know, I'm here working hard at City Hall, and if residents appreciate the way I've been able to elevate Brampton's voice, then that I'm happy to continue to serve. But if people want a different approach, then that's democracy. And so I encourage everyone just to vote. That's my message, is just to vote.
Especially all our new immigrants. If you're able to, if you're eligible, I think it's always the best, most Canadian experience ever is to go to the polls and vote for the very first time. So thank you, Patrick, for chatting with us. It's always a pleasure. And Sanjha TV, that was an exclusive interview with Patrick Brown, Brampton Mayor. Keep watching Sanjha TV. I'm your host, Amin Dillon, signing off from Brampton City Hall.